I guess I've been working with Jews for Jesus in one way or another since about 1978. So a long time. Worn a lot of hats over the years. I was with our music team. I was a missionary at some of our different branches. And this morning, I just want to kind of open up to you some of the things that God is doing today in the Jewish community around the world in terms of Jewish people coming to Christ. I was about 19 when I came to the Lord. Today we're seeing just a lot of openness in the Jewish community around the world. We've got a mission statement actually in our mission organization. Our mission statement is this: to make the messiahship of Jesus an unavoidable issue to our Jewish people worldwide. And the reason we have that mission statement is that as Jews, you know, here's what happens. We're taught from the time we're kids that Jesus is not for us. We're taught that if we become Christians, we become traitors to our people. We're taught that if we become Christians, we stop being Jewish. And none of that's true, but that's what we learn, whether you're religious or whether you're an atheist. And so it really takes God's working for Christ to become real to Jewish people, but it's happening. And I guess the first thing to say is that Jewish people are all around the world. Excuse me. There are about 16 million Jewish people in the world. So you've got about, just a couple of statistics, okay? You've got about 6 million in North America. You've got about 6 million in Israel. And the rest are in other countries throughout Europe, the former Soviet Union, and other places, Australia, South Africa, South America. And we have set up missionary branches in the largest cities where Jewish people are. And because of the way that we are taught about Jesus, you know, Jewish people are not rushing into the churches to hear the gospel. So we have to go out to where they are. And we sort of have to get out there and, and make the statement that you can be Jewish and believe in Jesus. And in fact, you should, because he is the Messiah that was promised to the Jewish people. And a couple of scriptures for you here. Pastor Chan already alluded to Romans 1:16, you know, kind of Paul's calling card about the gospel. Paul says, "I'm not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God for salvation to everyone who believes, to the Jew first, and also to the Greek." An important verse, because there are voices today that say, you know what? Jews don't need to hear about Jesus. They're okay without him. God made a covenant with the Jews thousands of years ago, and that's enough, and they don't need Jesus. Fact is, my people do need Jesus very much. We are spiritually adrift today. And so in Romans 10, Paul says this also. He says, "Brothers, my heart's desire and prayer to God for them, for the Jewish people, is that they may be saved. For I bear them witness that they have a zeal for God, but not according to knowledge." And today, Jewish people don't even have a zeal for God anymore. It's gotten a little worse. You know, the religious Jews are maybe 10% of the Jewish community. The rest are atheists, agnostics, exploring other religions, other spiritualities, and yet very open today to talking about spiritual things. I mean, I became a Christian after a long time of spiritual searching, and it's not unusual, you know. We just explore everything that's out there. You know, in the Bay Area here, there are a lot of Jews involved in Buddhism, and no joke, they're called Jubus. This is real. There are books about the Jubus. And I was very involved in spiritual explorations in high school and college, because I was raised in a home where God wasn't real. We were not a religious family. We were cultural Jews, like most are today, but God was not something that was at all real in my family. So what we had to do is we just went through different Jewish holidays and that kind of thing, but I began a spiritual exploration that took me about, 5 years or so till I finally came to Christ, but I was exploring everything. I even tried yoga at one point to reach God, and I couldn't twist into all the positions in the book that they showed you. And then I started, to worry, was salvation only for flexible people? This is terrible if that's the truth. And I got interested in Jesus kind of through a New Age version of him. And I finally met a Christian on my campus. So I went to Syracuse University in upstate New York. And a guy from Campus Crusade for Christ, now Cru, he shared the gospel with me, and we argued for 9 months. And I finally came to the place where I was convinced I was fighting God, and I gave my life over to the Jesus of the Scripture. And I discovered that, you know what, you don't stop being Jewish by believing in Jesus. He fulfills all God's promises. He fulfills who you are. And that got me really excited and wanting to tell others about Jesus also, others of my own people. So eventually I came on staff with Jews for Jesus to do mission work. And I'll share with you some of the things that are happening. One of the biggest things we do, because I said to you, Jews don't come into the church, we've got to go. So in our 26 branches around the world, one thing we do a lot of is we get out onto the streets or the downtown areas or the campuses, okay? And we hand out a lot of literature so we can engage people in conversation. And it's usually, to break the ice with people who don't always want to hear what we have to say necessarily. We use a little bit of humor and we make it topical so it kind of ties in with what people might be thinking about. And so at the holiday of Passover, which, tells the story of the Exodus from Egypt. And kind of the villain of the story is Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. So we have a tract we hand out at that time called Pharaoh Wasn't Very Nice. And get into conversations. Or Christmas time, okay? Whether you're Jewish, whether you're not Jewish, Christmas is just out there. You can't get away from it, right? It's in the culture. So we have a little tract called On the First Day of Christmas, My Rabbi Gave to Me, And people get into conversations with us. Now, we do this year-round, but we also have what we call evangelism campaigns that you see on the slide, where we have like an extended time, 2 weeks or a month. We'll get about 24 volunteers, get out onto the streets of a large city, Berlin, Budapest, London, New York City, Los Angeles. And we'll do all kinds of things on kind of an intensive basis to just raise the issue of the gospel to Jewish people. And here you see, in this slide, you see one of our teams. I think it's more than 24 there, but it's our team from a recent outreach in Budapest, Hungary. So here we are in Haifa, Israel, one of the cities in Israel. You see we go where the crowds are, huge crowds, the urban areas, the campuses. Next slide. And again in Berlin. And, the people who volunteer with us are all ages. Here's an older woman. You'll see a younger guy soon. But we just want to get out there where the people are. And we don't just talk to Jewish people, by the way. We'll talk to everybody who wants to engage us. And we actually lead more non-Jews to the Lord each year than Jewish people. So that's pretty cool. Next slide. So here's a guy actually reading. I think it's in Hebrew, so this will be Israel. He's reading it. He's checking it out. And maybe he'll talk to one of our campaigners. Next slide. And here in Berlin, again, a conversation. That's what we're all about. We want to get into conversations. We want to, get to the point where actually someone will say, okay, here's my name, here's my address, here's my email. I want to hear more. I'm not ready to believe yet, but let's keep in touch. Some people accept the Lord right then and there, and a lot more are just willing to say, let's keep the conversation going. Next, please. Yeah, a conversation. This is in Israel. People are just eager to talk to us. Next. New York City. Here's one of our guys, Aaron, in talking with an Orthodox Jewish man in the New York subway system. So, people engage us whether they're, on the very secular end of the spectrum or whether they are on the religious end. Okay, next one. To give you an idea of, again, just a few more statistics. We just had an outreach in Berlin, Germany. We handed out over 66,000 pieces of literature. We saw 85 non-believing Jewish people who said, let's keep in touch, let's talk more. They left us their contact information. And 374 non-believing, non-Jewish people did the same thing. And then we partnered with churches to follow up on all of this. 2 Jewish people and 34 non-Jewish people prayed to receive the Lord on that outreach. So that gives you an idea. It's not a mass movement of Jews to Christ, but it's planting the seeds, and one by one, people are interested. Another example on the next slide is Budapest. 147,000 pieces of literature. This one, they reported 1,600 gospel conversations where they actually engage with somebody about the gospel itself. Contact information from 49 Jews, 198 non-Jews, prayed to receive the Lord, 4 Jewish people, 20 non-Jews. And one by one, Jewish people are coming to Christ. Many more are interested. And even those who aren't leaving their information, they're thinking, they're processing, they're going, Jews and Jesus, how does it fit together? What is this all about? And we get to share with them. Let's go on. So besides the literature, we've also been doing a lot of creative types of outreaches. This is where we gave out cold brew coffee in New York City. And along with the cold brew coffee, next. Oh, here we are. We're offering it. Don't you just want one? It just looks so good. Reach out, get it. Next. Along with opportunities to interact about God and the gospel. So we invited people with their cold brew coffee to post a prayer on our little prayer thing there, even if they're not religious. A lot of people do that, They're like, yeah, I want to pray for this, or I'm hoping this happens. And the next slide kind of shows you, this is the prayer wall where people posted. And we engage them about this. We want to find out, what concerns you, and kind of show how the gospel is the answer to that. Next. Another thing we did is during Christmas season, we offered free gift wrapping. And then again, we got into conversations with people. Because a lot of people, they may not want to take literature from somebody. Maybe it's a little impersonal, right? So they'll take cold brew coffee. They see, hey, these guys are real. They want to engage on a personal basis. They want to wrap my gift. And it does lead into gospel conversations. Again, in Berlin, we had people with Post-it notes there. I don't remember exactly what the question was we were asking, but as you can see, people were posting their thoughts and responses, and it really leads to so many opportunities for conversations. Another thing that we've done in these sort of outreaches is what we call bannering. We just come up with the big signs. It's a public way of getting the message out. We'll stand over a street or over a highway with banners, and maybe they'll have a phone number for people to call and a little message. And that's another way that people respond. Now remember, again, we're trying to reach people who are not going to come into a church. They have learned that Jesus is not for me, so they think they can ignore the gospel. But we want to get out there and make it hard for them to ignore the gospel. We want them to engage over who Jesus is and what he means. So we hand out these banners. The next slide, this is in South Africa on the side of the road. This was in Canada. It says, "We are Jews who are for Jesus," gives the website address there. And this one is Israel. This was really very cool. There's a phone number there for people to call. And let me explain the little slogan on the banner. It's Hebrew for Yeshu equals Yeshua equals Yeshua. What's that? In Hebrew, Jesus' Hebrew name is Yeshua. Historically, it's Yeshua. But in Israel, people learn of his name as Yeshu. And the origin of that is that it's an acronym for a Hebrew phrase, "May his name and memory be blotted out," from a time when Jewish people were really hostile to Jesus. Now, in modern Israel, they don't know that's what it's from. They just grow up, he's Yeshu. So we're saying, no, Yeshu, the name you know, is Yeshua, his real Hebrew name, and that also equals Yeshua, which is the Hebrew word for salvation. So the Israelis see Yeshu equals Yeshua equals Yeshua. They're like, what? And they call 5552, and they, you know, connect with our guys there in Israel. That was very effective in Israel. We were getting a lot of calls. Also, you know, when something of current note happens, we want to get out there and sort of bring the gospel to speak to it. So this is a march in Paris. You remember a few years ago, there was the bombing of the offices of the periodical Charlie Hebdo. And then after that, there was a bombing of a kosher supermarket, all in Paris. And so people got out marching in solidarity against this act of terrorism. And I don't know if you can see the signs, but in French it says, Je suis Charlie, I am Charlie, we're all together. You know, they are me and I'm them, and we are all standing together. Here's another one, Je suis Charlie. So the whole theme was Je suis Charlie. What are we going to do with that? So, and here we're all Charlie, nous sommes tous Charlie. So what we did is, with the same font, we decided to go with Jesus' sayings. He didn't say, I'm Charlie, but he said, I am many other things. Je suis le chemin, I am the way. And on the flip side, Je suis Jésus, I am Jesus. And so we were able to take kind of the theme of this solidarity march and show something about how Jesus speaks into that situation. Got into conversations with people, Orthodox Jews, non-Orthodox Jews. Our office front in Paris, Juif pour Jésus. So it has, Je suis la lumière, I am the light. Je suis le chemin, je suis la vérité, I am the way and the truth. So the way, life, truth, way, life, truth. I'm not sure what order it's in there. But of course from the Gospels. And while everyone's out there thinking we are all Charlie, we're saying there's another I am you should think of, and he's someone who deeply cares about what's going on right now in Paris. So we were able to segue into the gospel. Then, this is great, in Budapest, I'm just giving you a couple of examples of what goes on. In Budapest, we had an event called Two Sons of the Holocaust. And let me see if I can just read a bit of this to you. January 17th marked the 70th anniversary of the liberation of the Budapest ghetto by the Soviet Army. Our program, Two Sons of the Holocaust, featured three very special speakers, two Jewish, the other Austrian. Karl Flesch, who you see here, survived the Budapest ghetto and actually turned 12 on the very day the ghetto was liberated. And then on the next slide, you have Werner Ode, who is our Austrian friend, the son of an SS officer who was one of the men responsible for training the Einsatzgruppen, Hitler's special extermination squad. But the reason we brought them together is that both of them have come to embrace faith in Jesus, and we're able to show what reconciliation in the gospel looks like. And that's awesome. And we got a good audience for this. So you see the people, you know, we just invited the general public, and people came and were able to hear the gospel in a situation and in a country where the past treatment of the Jewish people is a sensitive subject among many. And we came to show that good can come even out of something horrible. Reconciliation through faith in Christ. And so we did that. Another means of outreach, we just try, you know, so many things that we can do. I mean, the whole point is, you know, get into conversation with people who think this isn't relevant to me, or I don't want to talk about this. How do you turn that around? How do you get people to cut through their filters? Their filters say, Jesus, no. And how do you get them to think, well, maybe there's something real here? We had a Jewish believer in Jesus named Steffi Geiser Rubin, who's an artist. And she did up a series of, I think it's like 24 paintings from the Gospel of Matthew, where quotes from the Old Testament. So here's a painting based on Isaiah 7:14, but it's the verse in Matthew where it says, "You shall call his name Yeshua, for he will save his people from their sins." And this was to fulfill the verse in Isaiah. So we got a painting of this, and we went around with an exhibition of these artworks. Next slide. We had a book, and there are some other pieces of the artwork, really vibrant, really eye-catching. And so we went in Florida. We set up an outdoor booth with copies of the paintings. And people, you know, they're just like, what is this Hebrew? It's from the Gospel of Matthew in the New Testament. What? The New Testament is Jewish? The New Testament in Hebrew? And yeah, it's all the prophecies that were fulfilled in the life of Yeshua. And here in another location, I'm not sure, this might be France, I'm not sure. We had an indoor exhibit, and one of our guys there is talking to the people, explaining what the painting is. A lot of interest. Go on. And again, you know, large copies of the paintings there. And actually, these were the originals, I think. These were the originals that went on this tour. And just get Jews and non-Jews coming and seeing the Jewishness of the New Testament, the Jewishness of Jesus, and their filters are just, you know, clogged with mental oil. They can't, you know, they can't process this. What's going on? And we get to explain to them. Okay. Now, I'll quickly tell you about one of our most exciting places we're working. We're in 26 cities around the world, but our focal point now is Israel, where you've got 6 million Jewish people. And we set up a ministry center in a kind of a trendy neighborhood in Tel Aviv called Florentine. A lot of young people, a lot of happening things. Here you get to see a few of the scenes of what Florentine is like. It's you know, really a happening place. And we set up what we call the Moishe Rosen Center, Merkaz Moshe Rosen, in honor of the founder of Jews for Jesus, Moishe Rosen. That's the front of the building there. And let's go, next one. Yeah, kind of just showing you the facade. But the real heart is what happens inside. There's, you know, places for people to hang out. We can do community events. Here's like one of the inside areas. And again, and people hang out. People from the community, you know, they just find it. And these are all Jewish Israelis, right? So they come, they hang out. And we have used this space for a lot of community outreach events. So here's what's going on here, okay? When Israelis reach 18 years of age, they've all got to do army service, men and women, for a few years, 2 or 3 years. When they get out, a lot of the Israelis tool around the world. North India, you know, Bolivia. And India is like the prime destination for Israeli backpackers. There are whole communities there that cater to the Israelis. We've sent teams every single summer for like the last 10 years probably to go there and share the gospel with them. And then they come back to Israel, right? And a lot of them have taken pictures. So we opened up the space to an annual photography event called India Through the Eyes of the Traveler. And these are all Israelis in the community. Some are believers, most are not, who put their photographs there. There's a display. Next slide. And we just open this up to them. We serve refreshments. Next slide. People are watching, they're looking, and of course we get into gospel conversations with all these people from the community. And you know, we're developing this solid relationship right there at the community level. And of course, a big part of Israeli life is the army. Here's one of our guys sharing with a soldier, and another one sharing with a soldier. And so in the Moishe Rosen Center, we've opened up Bible studies for Israeli soldiers that we conduct right there in that space. Okay, and these are just like a couple of the things that are happening, a few of the things that are happening in terms of reaching Jewish people with the gospel. Got to remember, the main thing is that we're taught, hey, Jesus is not for us. Whether we're in any country except in Israel, you know what? You know what? In Israel, people don't even know about Jesus. They're like a blank slate. We took a survey. For some reason, the main thing people knew is that he walked on the water. I don't know why that. That's weird. But it's a blank slate in Israel. And they've never heard the gospel. So I want to show you now, though, real quickly, a 3-minute clip from one of our evangelism campaigns in New York City. I'm from New York City. I've been on 6 of these evangelism campaigns during the summer. And in this clip, we're going to actually see real New Yorkers tell you what they think about Jesus. And New Yorkers are not shy about sharing their opinions with people. You know, we yell at other people to be friendly. That's the New York way of doing it. So let's have a look.
Hitting the streets of the Big Apple, it's a Jews for Jesus tradition that began in 1974.
We come to New York to make the messiahship of Jesus an unavoidable issue to our Jewish people.
While many New Yorkers are familiar with the ministry, the age-old question of who is Jesus remains controversial.
Jesus is not to be worshipped. Jesus was Jesus. That's it.
There's no such thing as Jesus for Jesus. It's something that was made up out of somebody's kapei shekah.
Over 2,000 years ago, Jesus asked his disciples, "Who do you say that I am?" Though the question is old, it remains relevant today. Me who? Who is he?
That's the most important question anyone can ever ask in this life. Who is Jesus?
What's your opinion? Who do you think Jesus was?
Who do you think Jesus is?
I can't really tell if there is a Jesus or not.
Who do you think Jesus is?
Messiah, Allah, Jehovah. God is one God, honey.
Not only do they ask the question, who is he? They wear it. Part of Jews for Jesus' bold street ministry philosophy.
We're fanatical in the sense that we believe strongly in what we believe. Do you believe in Jesus, or who do you think he is?
I think Jewish is more the culture than anything else. It's about being Jewish. It doesn't mean anything more than that.
I don't believe in you. Okay, go away.
If you can reach a hardened New Yorker and get them to think about a message that's been around for 2,000 years, then you can reach anybody, anywhere.
But then there's something that awakens in us.
We have a wonderful group of young people here, passionate about Christ, passionate about evangelism.
I really like having conversations about who Jesus is and why he's so special.
My soul cries out and says, I have to reach them, and never should I give up.
It's awakening the Jewish community, and if we don't do it, who's going to do it?
This is the future of Jewish missions. This is the future of Jews for Jesus.
I love the guy who said, "Go away. I don't believe in you." But that's so typical for New York. So I just want to invite you to be part of what God's doing in the Jewish community today. Several ways to do this, however God puts on your heart. So in your bulletin, you should have an envelope marked Jews for Jesus. That serves a couple of purposes, that envelope. If you open the flap, there's a place to fill out your name and address and email and all that sort of thing. If you fill out that card, and we'd like to invite you all to partner with us that way. We've got a free monthly newsletter we'll send you, like what I'm holding up here, which is designed to just, keep you in the loop, give you things to pray for. I bet a lot of you have Jewish friends, and so that will help you share your faith with Jewish people that you know. And this way you can just really partner with us, at least by knowing what's going on and being able to pray. We also have an email communication once a month, so you could put down your email for that. Prayer is another great thing to do. And what you can pray for right now is, before I showed you like the Budapest outreach and the Berlin outreach, we're still following up the Jewish people who said, "Tell me more," or who prayed to receive the Lord. Like I say, we partner with churches, largely for the non-Jewish people who responded, because our staff is very limited. But we're following up the Jewish contacts, and please pray that some of those people who are interested will actually come to take that step of faith and believe in Jesus as their Messiah. That would be great. What else? There's a resource table outside of those doors. You'll find things that are free. You'll find things that are not so free. We've got a book that really responds to those people who think Jews don't need Jesus. This is called Jews Don't Need Jesus and Other Misconceptions. And it's written by Avi Snyder, our European director. We'll have some of those. And we've got like DVDs here. This is called Survivor Stories. Remember the Holocaust event there? This is the testimonies of like 6 or maybe 7 Jewish Holocaust survivors who came to faith in Christ. So really powerful stuff. That they could come to faith after experiencing everything that the Jewish people experienced in Europe. We'll have some of these. And there'll be an opportunity to give into an offering for Jews for Jesus, as Pastor Chan said. If you're giving to Jews for Jesus, you want to put your gift in that envelope in your bulletin. You don't have to give to fill it out, though. And just join us in prayer. Join us in your thoughts. It's been a joy to be with you here this morning, and I'll share more with you in a little bit.